Chair Dickey, we're ready to go whenever you are.
Welcome, everyone, to the June Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. And Ms. Kinnan would like me to start out with a land acknowledgement.
Yes, please.
Great. So I would like to start this meeting recognizing the homeland of the 30 First Nation communities of this area we now call the Fraser Valley Regional District, where we live, work, and learn. Important decisions that we make at a local government level can affect First Nations communities and Indigenous peoples and their organizations in many different ways, both today and in the future. So as part of our collective responsibility, I commit that we continually examine the work we do to ensure that our project, plans, initiatives, and discussion are guided by the principles of inclusion, collaboration, and reconciliation. So with that in mind, I'd like to call to order the June 8th, 2023 meeting of Electoral Area Services Committee. Good. We'll turn things to Ms. Kinnan.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So the first item on our agenda is your report from this morning's Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting.
Good. I believe we were only missing Hugh Davidson, Director Davidson from the morning meeting. So we certainly want to keep Director Davidson informed of what was happening. So we had Superintendent Lee from the RCMP come to RAC seeking feedback on the 6 questions revolving around community policing that were circulated by staff, I believe, yesterday. Mr. Lee received a wide range of responses, and there were a lot of comments from EA directors regarding the need for more policing on Crown lands. We then had a delegation or presentation from our staff members, Ms. Alexander and Ms. Zong, regarding the Regional Growth Strategy map, which talked about the Regional Growth Strategy Monitoring Program. This is a new monitoring website which informs our communities and builds awareness of our Regional Growth Strategy Program. There is a vast inventory of information regarding the FERD available with amazing graphics. And there wasn't a lot of discussion in the rest of the open meeting, so that's my report for today. Ms. Kinnaman.
Looking for approval of the agenda, addenda, and late items.
Motion moved. Director Adamo, second Director Johnson. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Next item is 5.1, which is a delegation on economic development in rural areas.
Good. There's somebody we know. Welcome.
Thank you.
Nice
Thank you, CAO Kinnaman and Director Dickey for having me here today. My name is Nicole Reed. I'm with Community Futures South Fraser, and I have with me as well my colleagues from Community Futures North Fraser, Gwen Schmidt. Over here.
Welcome.
Covers the Agassiz, Harrison, and Mission areas, as well as some of your electoral areas, and also Rocio Zielinski, who represents she's the GM for Community Futures for Stolo. Let's rephrase Stolo. Welcome, Community Futures.
Ms. Zielinski.
And Rocio covers the region from Yale to Fort Langley, both sides of the river. So a really large region there. Again, for having me today. Community Futures organizations are nonprofit organizations that provide community economic development services to rural areas across Canada. There's 34 offices here in Chilliwack, here in BC, including 4 Indigenous specific community futures, with Stolo Community Futures being one of those. So just a few items on our agenda or on my summary here today. So we're going to talk a little bit about community futures and community economic development, or CED. We're going to look at the social impact, the economic impact, and the environmental impact of CED, and then I'll just provide you with a little bit of a summary. So as I said, community futures organizations are not-for-profit. We are run by independent boards of directors and only work in rural areas across the country. Our goal is to support local businesses, encourage entrepreneurship, build community capacity, provide access to capital, foster collaboration, and enhance rural livelihoods. So I want to talk to you about 3 areas of community economic development. And these are things that I want you to be able to consider or think about for your own electoral areas and what impact we can support you with in your own areas. So just a reminder that CED refers to the economic development that focuses on improving the quality of life of people in your community. It's a holistic approach that looks beyond traditional economic development, and it considers the social, economic, and environmental impacts. And this presentation today will cover the concepts of CED and its impact in those areas, particularly for rural areas. So social impact of CED has a significant impact on social well-being. Communities that are economically depressed often suffer from low self-esteem, lack of opportunities, and a sense of hopelessness. With community economic development, new employment opportunities are created, and this leads to an increase in income levels that people can now afford basic necessities of life, like food, clothing, and shelter, and in turn creates a positive outlook, boosting self-confidence and encouraging self-cohesion or social cohesion. So I wanted to just provide you with a few examples of what some social impact projects in your communities could look like. So the first one is community-supported agriculture programs or CSA programs. You may see some of those already in your areas. These initiatives help local farms sell their produce directly to consumers, ensuring that the farmers get a fair price and the community has access to fresh and healthy food. The second one is micro enterprise development, and this involves providing training and resources to help rural residents start small businesses such as craft shops, farmers markets, or home-based services. The third opportunity is home repair and weatherization programs. By providing assistance with home repairs and energy efficient upgrades, these initiatives can help low-income households save money on utility bills and improve their quality of life. The fourth option is telecommunications infrastructure. We know that in rural areas, there's often a lack of high-speed internet, and that's something that the government and most rural areas are trying to focus on bringing, and building out that broadband infrastructure is increasingly seen as an important solution to this problem. And finally, one example of social CED is youth and job training programs. So these programs aim to teach vocational skills to young people, align curricula with industry demand, and give youth a sense of purpose and direction in their lives. The second area of CED is the economic impact, and that enables local and small businesses to really grow or suffer when rural areas suffer from a lack of economic growth and face difficulty in attracting businesses. So CED enables local and small businesses to grow, leading to an increase in local employment, revenue generation, and increased economic activity. This helps in reducing poverty, minimizes the need for government assistance, and provides the community with sustainable sources of income. A few examples of some economic CED projects, and feel free to just interrupt anytime and ask questions, but I'll just keep rolling along. Some examples of economic-based projects for your rural communities would include microfinance programs, which is something that Community Futures does. Microfinance provides access to financial services for people who do not have access to traditional banking services. And these programs usually offer small loans, savings accounts, and insurance products to support small business development and other economic activities. You can also start job training programs, and job training programs aim to develop the skills and knowledge of people in disadvantaged communities so they have a better chance of finding meaningful work. And these programs can include vocational training, apprenticeships, and other forms of on-the-job training. Cooperatives, they're a community-based business that are owned and operated by their members. And cooperatives can help create jobs, generate income, and strengthen community bonds. Agricultural development. Agricultural development projects can help improve the productivity and profitability of small-scale farmers, thus contributing to economic growth and poverty reduction. Projects can include the provision of seeds, fertilizers, irrigation systems, and other inputs. And finally, for economic development, tourism. Tourism development can help generate income and create job opportunities in communities with unique natural and cultural attractions. Projects can include the development of tourist infrastructure, such as hotels and restaurants, as well as making marketing and promotion. And the final area of CED is the environmental impact of community economic development. It promotes sustainable economic growth, which is environmentally friendly and beneficial. Industries that cause environmental damages are avoided and natural resources are conserved to ensure a clean and healthy environment. Rural areas are often the most vulnerable to environmental disasters, and community economic development can address this problem by adapting environmental friendly practices. And again, just a few examples of some environmental options for CED: community gardens, and these are green spaces where people can grow fruits, vegetables, and herbs. Community gardens help reduce greenhouse gas emissions by encouraging local food production, as well as increase community cohesion and healthy lifestyles. I've seen community gardens on streets, within communities, and just within those actual public areas, and it's really quite an amazing space. Energy efficient housing. This involves constructing homes that are energy efficient, saving homeowners and renters money on utility bills. This reduces the strain on the environment as less energy is used when powering their home. Ecotourism. This type of tourism promotes responsible travel to natural areas, conserving the environment, improving the well-being of local people. Some examples of ecotourism include hiking, bird watching, or visiting natural landmarks. And I think that this is very common in many of your rural areas. There's also green infrastructure projects and recycling programs, and these probably sit at a little bit higher level, but rain gardens, bioswales, green roofs, all contributing factors to green infrastructure projects that you could have or promote within your community. And the recycling programs, obviously, from diverting waste from landfills and reducing that environmental impact of traditional waste disposal methods. So in summary, community economic development is a holistic approach that promotes social, economic, and environmental sustainability in rural areas. It creates new job opportunities, encourages income generation, promotes social cohesion, and ensures the conservation of natural resources. CED is important to the livelihood of rural communities, and we encourage all elected officials to support it in all its forms. This all leads into how Community Futures organizations impact the community economic development services to your rural areas and your small communities. Some of the benefits of Community Futures organizations in CED include supporting local businesses by providing access to funding, training, and resources to support local businesses, which creates new jobs and helps diversify local economies. We do it by encouraging entrepreneurship, by helping aspiring entrepreneurs with business planning, mentoring, and advice. And this helps to stimulate a culture of entrepreneurship and innovation in communities. By building community capacity, we're providing skill development and training programs to enable individuals to participate in the local economy and to provide leadership to support economic and social development initiatives. We foster collaboration. We work closely with local governments, chambers of commerce, Indigenous communities, and other stakeholders to strengthen the local economy through collaboration, economic development planning. We provide access to capital, providing loans. We do loan guarantees and other forms of financial support to help finance small business, especially in the startup realm. And finally, enhancing rural livelihoods. Community Futures organizations help rural communities to retain young people, attract newcomers, and improve the quality of life for existing residents by supporting small businesses, creating employment opportunities, and promoting local economic development. Overall, Community Futures organizations are essential players in community economic development, and our impact of rural communities and small towns is significant and long-lasting. Here's the direct impact we've had collectively over the past year. So this is the collective input from Rocio and Gwen's and my regions. We did 135 different unique projects, including digital literacy training for elders and youth, farmers. We've supported farmers market and shop local campaigns. We've created 66 new jobs through financing over 20 loans with a total value of $2.25 million. This money has gone directly into the rural communities to support startup funding. We gave 3,798 business advisory sessions to aspiring and seasoned entrepreneurs, including one-on-one specialist support with lawyers, accountants, bookkeepers, HR specialists, and marketing specialists. And we trained 605 different participants in similar type courses. This is all possible through collaboration between our offices and with local stakeholders and local government. And that is Community Futures in a nutshell. Any questions?
Good. Thank you, Ms. Reed. Directors, questions or comments? Director Adam.
Through this chair, thank you very much. That was a wonderful presentation. Really appreciate that. Just a couple of questions. One would be, where do you get this information, and does your organization come out to our rural areas to speak on subject matters like that?
So information for the presentation around community economic development has come from my really good friend, ChatGPT. It's been a great source, but obviously this is just to help put us through everything that we do. So Community Futures is funded by the federal government to do community economic development and to provide financing to small businesses and startups through loans when they're not eligible through traditional financing. And yes, we are in all of your rural areas. So between ourselves, Mission, and Stolo CF, as well as the Sun Country office, which operates out of Ashcroft, but comes down into the Hope Sunshine Valley region, we are all available to support economic development within your communities. We look at leveraging funds through our different projects that we do. So probably last year, just in my office alone, we probably leveraged about $50,000 in funds towards community projects, as well as money that we've put in ourselves. So by bringing stakeholders together and other levels of government together.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair. Just you mentioned community gardens. How, in what context do you fund them? Do you have grant funding that goes towards them, or how do you support the community gardens?
So locally here in Chilliwack, I'll speak to the community garden that we have in that the Bowls of Hope has done. So we've supported them through the business planning stage. We've supported with funds and helped for grant writing. And so those are kind of just some ways that we can support. So we do a lot of support with grant writing or providing workshops around how to do grant writing. But again, bringing those collective organizations together, we're really good at being that face of people that will be able to bring all the different economic development organizations together. So sometimes we'll throw in funding depending on what that looks like. If we're supporting entrepreneurs to, use garden space, we can support that through funding, but each office also runs independently of other ones. So some offices have more project funding than others.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. Thank you for your presentation. Two questions. The first is, so the stats that you presented on the slide, are those stats of the organizations in their regions as a whole, or are those numbers directly from electoral areas?
Nope, those are definitely our whole region.
The whole region.
Together. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. There's sometimes in the presentation when it talked about small communities and rural communities in the context of this table, sometimes that's, Abbotsford's not really a small community compared to Desroches, but I get it.
Definitely not. Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
And the other question, which might be more of a comment, but I have a lot of history with Community Futures, and has the focus of Community Futures evolved over the years? I know when I was involved way back, it was more about business loans, and what you presented here today. While I see a lot of business opportunity, there's a lot of social impacts that Community Futures is having. So the question is, has there been an evolution And is that indicative of the federal government that we have today?
Thank you for your question. It's a good question. I do believe that our community futures offices, especially the ones that we represent here today, have probably evolved from the strict focus on the economic development side of community economic development. The economic impact is great. However, in our region here, so because Community Futures is run throughout the 34 rural communities or rural areas within the province, you know, a lot of them are far up north where they don't have, or far east, right, in the Kootenays, and they don't have a lot of traditional financing in their regions. Whereas our areas tend to generally have more access to traditional financing. So there's been less of a need, although it's starting to grow again now because banks are not working as hard for entrepreneurs or for startups, or unable to. That there's, you know, more need now for that untraditional financing or non-traditional financing through community futures. But I think it also depends on who the individual is that's managing the office and what they want to see as, or what they see as value for economic development in the region. So there are 3 pillars. Some offices only focus on the microfinancing. And, you know, I gave you 15 examples today of economic development. Within our offices, we might focus on 3 or 4 specific projects in a year that, you know, that really hone into either training or the CSA boxes, or, you know, agriculture, something like that. But it really depends on what the area is and what the needs are. And after being at a Fraser Valley Regional District meeting before and hearing you talk about what you need within your electoral areas, I think that community economic development, that you have to come to your Community Futures office. You've got to come and engage with us, or we can engage with you so that we can help promote economic development, and you can put funds towards project funding rather than, you know, just funding a person to do the work. We're here, our offices are here to support you and to collaborate. So I think there's a really good opportunity there to utilize Community Futures in your areas.
Great. Thank you, Director Castle. Director McElhonick.
Thank you. It's nice to see you all taking the time to come in. So I think I've heard the answer to this, but I just wanted to be sure. So in the Area E, Chilliwack River Valley, our Residents Association is working for the last 4 years on something called the Ambassador Program. And it's to connect with people coming into the valley during the summer months, and just in a nice way, letting them know that we'd like them to pack their garbage out and what resources are in and stuff like that. And they're trying to find funding, and I don't think they know about this program. So I'm thinking possibly having someone attend one of their monthly meetings by Zoom, or coming out. And because this would be a great project. I mean, we are working with Tourism Chilliwack a little bit as well, but I think it is a project that kind of falls between the cracks on a few things. It just doesn't quite fit here or there. So would that be something that, you know, you could send someone to come and speak to the group? Or
Yep, absolutely happy to speak about, because there's good environmental impacts there, first of all, but you're also drawing those tourism dollars, right? So there's an economic impact. People are coming in to experience the trails, and we want to make sure that it's safe. So we're not, you know, bringing in search and rescue and all the rest, and making sure that they are doing their part as well. So tourism has a huge impact on that. We work quite collaboratively with them, so we would be happy to.
great. Okay, I think I'll let them know and see if they can contact you to put you on the agenda. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Good. Thank you, Director McElhonick. See other comments? Thank you, Ms. Reed, for coming out today. Economic development is certainly a big part of our responsibility in local government, and thank you for reminding us and providing us some examples, and especially nice to see representation from Stalo and the First Nations we're such important, you people are such important neighbors to us in electoral areas, and nice to see you taking a much bigger role in the economic development community in the Fraser Valley. So thanks everyone for showing up today.
Thanks for having us.
Ms. Kinnaman.
So moving to item 6.1, we have the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of May the 11th, 2023.
Promotion, move Director Adamo, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
7.1, we have the Fraser Valley Regional District Board of Variance Establishment Bylaw number 1704.
Hey, being a motion, move Director Johnson, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.1 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Actively Creating an Exceptional Society in Electoral Area C.
Director Wardenberg moves, second Director Dixon, Castle, excuse me. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.2 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Baker Trails Mobile Home Park in Electoral Area E.
Motion Director McElhonick, second Director Adamo. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.3 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Columbia Valley Fire Department Association in Electoral Area H.
Motion Director Dixon, second Director Wardenberg. Any discussion? None, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
And 8.4 is a 2023 grant and aid request for the Cultus Lake Fire Department Association in Electoral Area H.
Move Director Dixon, second Director Johnson. Any discussion, Director Dixon?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just wanted to put it out. I'm really happy to be able to support both of our fire departments in Area H. They do incredible work and got a busy season coming up. So I'm just happy to support them.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. And on the motion, all those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.5 is amendment to Fraser Valley Regional District 2023 to 2027 Financial Plan Bylaw number 1697.
For a motion, move Director Wardenberg, second Director McElhonick. Discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.1 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Amendment Bylaw number 1691 to correct mapping and typographical errors, improve definitions and regulations, and address other minor issues.
A motion, Director Adamo, second Director Johnson. Discussion. It's a very big initiative. Nice to see it getting tied up. All those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.2 is Agricultural Land Commission application for a non-farm use in the Agricultural Land Reserve at 59710 Lougheed Highway in Electoral Area B.
Director Adamo, second Director Johnson. Discussion. Director Adamo.
Thank you. Just looking through this, I had a number of questions that I submitted to staff and everything was answered very nicely and with great detail. So I felt really comfortable moving forward and going to the next step with this. So I'm looking forward to seeing where we go and how this comes together.
New bamboo business in the Fraser Valley. Great. Thank you, Director Adamo. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries.
9.3 is Development Variance Permit 2023-03 to reduce setbacks at 59321 St. Elmo Road in Electoral Area B.
Oh, this is the bamboo business. Oh, no, St. Elmo, this is Mr. Wanker. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Looking for a motion. Move Director Adamo, second Director Wardenberg. Discussion.
Thanks through the chair to staff once again. Good work on this, getting all the details in order, and the mapping was terrific. Went through it, took a drive out there, felt really comfortable with this process moving forward as well. And it didn't appear to affect any of the neighbors, and everybody was really comfortable with the entire process. So thanks once again.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director McElhonick, or you're going to vote in favor? All in favor. Contrary, motion carries.
9.4 is the site-specific floodplain exemption permit 2023-01 for 40774 Taylor Road in Electoral Area G.
Move Director Castle, second Director Wardenberg, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor, contrary, motion carries. Wow, we're flying today.
9.5 is a special event permit for the Cultus Lake Triathlon in Electoral Areas E and H.
Here's a contentious issue. Looking for a motion. Have a dead man on the scene. Second, Director Johnson, any discussion? Director Dixon.
Thank you. Happy to support this. I know it's a big deal for many in the area that like to do these things, and lots of support for it. And just I appreciate that they paid attention to the traffic safety plan, because that's it's one small road and it's narrow and all the rest of it. So I think that's an important part of this. So thank you.
Good, thank you, Director Dixon. Director McElhaney.
I have a question regarding events and areas, and it's a little bit related. So just an example, like, so we had an event in my area E, that I didn't know about, that had signage on the roads, Ride for Water, and it kind of went through. Like, would that need an event permit? I mean, it was, and did somebody do that and I didn't know? And I mean, I'm just wondering for these kinds of things. So, yeah.
Through the chair to Director McElhaney, generally, yes, we receive event permits for those kinds of events. Off the top of my head, I can't recall if the Ride for Water event, I believe it was last weekend, ever came through this committee and board. Typically, they come through quite a few months in advance, so it's possible that it came last year, but I'm just going to look over to staff to see if that particular event, if they've got any recollection of that one for the first week of June in 2023. I mean, quite often those permits would have come through in 2022, but perhaps staff can recall.
Through the chair, if I may, I will invite our bylaw enforcement officer, Louise Hinton, to comment on that question.
The Ride for Water was less than 200 participants. So usually our special event permit is only required where there's over 200 participants. So I'm not sure if that answers your question or if you're looking for further information.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Ms. Hinton. Thank you, Director McElhaney. Director Dixon's lights on.
I'm not sure this is the place for this either, but just they were also in my area, and I remember being surprised that I was stopped on the road without being aware that something was going on. So and it was down Vance Road, Sleepy Hollow Road, but I think it's important that the electoral area directors and the people in it know that this is coming, or even if it's just one street, so that we can give people a heads up.
Certainly, through the chair to Director Dixon, I also noted on that weekend that there were actually 3 separate events that were happening in the city of Chilliwack and extending into the electoral areas. So while maybe each individual event didn't meet the threshold of the number of participants, I think that the sum total probably did. So with that feedback, we will certainly look at our processes in the future as inquiries come in on events for certain weekends.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. So on the motion,
Davidson?
Oh, pardon me, Director Davidson, please go ahead.
Just one question on this, because I know annually that BC holds its provincial cycling championships in Hatsic Valley, and it never comes through the board. And I've been inferring over time, because I would expect there are easily more than 200 participants, that the criteria is more around the fact that it's on essentially provincial, i.e. MOTI infrastructure, and doesn't involve land use in any way. But that's just my inference on what the criteria for whether or not a special event permit is required. I was wondering if staff could add any other criteria other than the 200 participant threshold. Thank you.
If I may, through the chair to Director Davidson, It sounds like an event that like you're describing, even though it takes place on roads, but has more participants than 200 would require a permit. And perhaps we could follow up with you after the meeting to understand the event a little better, and our staff can reach out to the event organizers and have a discussion with them about permitting.
Okay. Looks like that will address this issue. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, contrary, the motion carries.
Moving down to item 10.1.1, we have the Flood Falls Wildfire After Action Review and Report. This is an item for your information, but I know staff will be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Discussion. Director Adam.
Through the chair to staff, this is a very detailed report. Thank you very much for this. This was something that some people were asking for, and I saw that some of the members from these communities were participants in the whole process. So it was great that everyone was included in this. So there is some follow-up that I have. I'm meeting with some members of the Laidlaw group next week. So they had a couple of questions that I didn't refer directly to this because I didn't think it was public at this stage, but they're going to come up with some questions as well, following up on the process. But thanks very much.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to staff, I'm looking at the, I guess, page 8 in the report, PMO reduction recommendations. It has a couple of bullets there that speak to building depth in the EOC liaison role, and building depth in the information officer role. When I read words like build depth, I sort of mentally equate that with need more staff time. But I'm not sure what your take on it on those bullets is, and whether you feel you have adequate resources to fulfill the recommendations, or if you have any comments on their recommendations as a whole. Whether you agree, disagree with what you see going forward, what you see not going forward with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Davidson.
Sure. Through the chair to Director Davidson. As you know, the EOC roles are filled by FVRD staff who have to be trained in the particular areas of an emergency operations center. And while I will defer to Graham Danilus on this item, generally speaking, we need to make sure that the existing FVRD staff have the adequate training to fill all of those roles. And so the items that have been identified, there needs to be more FVRD staff trained in those functions, not adding staff capacity to the organization. But perhaps I'll just look to Graham to see if there's anything more he wanted to add to that.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, we do agree with the PMO recommendations, and are actively working to improve our situation there. For example, we've secured funding from Emergency Management and Climate Resilience BC to offer an information officer training session that's happening I think it's within the next month in this very room, where it will be providing additional training to our own staff. We'll manage this within our contingent of staff resources. Our goal is to get more people trained. And it's a great opportunity for us not only to train our own staff, but to bring in our partners and colleagues in other emergency programs in Chilliwack and elsewhere to train in the same room with us. And so that's one example of how we follow up on these kinds of recommendations.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Downs. Just curious, maybe Ms. College could educate me. I was always used to the Ministry of Forests taking the primary role in firefighting. Now it seems like it's the BC Wildfire Service. Who are these people? What is this grouping?
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Dickey. BC Wildfire Service is the lead agency having jurisdiction over wildfire response, and they are a branch of the Ministry of Forests. So they're really the bigger vehicle now when it comes to firefighting in wildfire areas, and up to the point of a jurisdiction having authority such as ourselves. So they are an adjunct component. They are the agency and the lead, and they are the primary body having jurisdiction over wildfire fighting.
Oh, that's interesting. So it seems to me that forest fires have become a much bigger problem than they historically were. And so this is a more dedicated staff and yeah. Good. Okay. Thank you, Ms. College. Any other discussion on, this is an information item. Seeing none, Ms. Kinnaman.
Item 11.1 is the 2022 annual report.
And that is an information item also. Any discussion? Very detailed, comprehensive report. Thank you, staff. Good. We'll
Okay,
move
next we
forward.
move to item 14, which is reports by electoral area directors.
And we'll start with Director Johnson. Thank you, Director Adamo. Okay, Director Wardenberg.
Yeah, just a couple things. For one, I was invited on May 29th by the Chief and Council of Stahelis First Nations to a special ceremony, the first salmon ceremony. Also part of that ceremony was the naming of the Grand Chief, Willie Charlie, who is currently their CEO. A very special ceremony. Probably never see something like that again in my life. And congratulations to Willie Charlie. I met with the Eagle Point Strata to address some assets at risk and some other issues as far as services go, and discuss some tax issues. And I attended the Harrison River Valley AGM yesterday at the Kilby Historic Site. And that's about it for me.
Good.
But personally, congratulations to the Stahelis. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, we continue with our Cultus Lake Goose Management Committee, and we're busy counting geese this morning. And this year we have 23 goslings, which is down, and that's enough because the whole beach was a mess already. But anyway, so that's going on. So thanks to the group of people that help work on that. Last night at the Columbia Valley Ratepayers Association meeting, there is concern about the proposed logging on Vetter Mountain. So I will be setting up a community meeting, just asking the reps from BC Timber Sales to come out and give us a little bit more information about that. So they can hear our concerns and we can have a chance to find out what they're planning. I attended a BC Parks session for future facility additions, I guess, or improvements at the Cultus Lake BC Parks. Quite honestly, in that session that I was at, most people were wanting to really help BC Parks understand what our concerns are, those people who are living there. And a lot of it was overcrowding, damage left behind, potential concerns for the health of the lake. And there was very little discussion at that meeting anyway about improved facilities beyond asking BC Parks to complete the Lakeside Trail. And which there was a lot of support for that. So we shall see what happens with that. Coming up, if you're looking for things to do and you like to fish, you can come out and catch pike minnows on June 17th, dawn till about 2 p.m. Prizes, and more prizes. Apparently, there's lots of prizes to give out. So that's one. And June 24th is Cultus Lake Day. And there's a parade. Pancake breakfast starts at 8 a.m. This is a really awesome event for the area, especially our Cultus Lake Park Board events committee organized it all. But this year we're having Tourism Chilliwack is supporting protecting this gift and Meet the Protectors. So we do have Steve Clegg and about 8 other divers coming out and are pulling up whatever's on the bottom of Cultus Lake, and we'll be educating the public on that type of thing and how damaging it can be. So I'm really looking forward to that. That's it. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. So 23 goslings, how does this relate to past years?
Oh, down. And I want you bobcats.
I was going to say, I think we had about 80 goslings at Shiam Lake and the survival rate was 0.
These are already big. See, so they're gonna survive.
Director Makahane.
I attended the Post Creek AGM. They had a really good attendance out there, so that was good. Our stakeholders meeting for the Chilliwack River Valley is still going. Was a little bit less, I think, due to holidays, people having holidays, but actually seeing some really good traction. So, what's happening now is the RCMP and, forestry. So the RCMP are bringing a 3-month report to that meeting every month and on all their stats. And then the RAP is bringing all the reports that are brought in from Chilliwack River Valley for their stats. And we can make them into actionable items for that. So we're actually seeing some movement. So that's been pretty good. And then we can see, is crime really going up or down, or and what the calls are. So I think that's really helping. And really happy to see the campfire ban today. I have been last 24, 36 hours. I've had a lot of phone calls and emails from people concerned. So this is going to be good. And yeah, so I'm hoping the sign will go working with staff and trying to make sure our sign goes up. And our Fire Smart Day is June 24th. I attended an event this week, but we have Director Dickey will be reporting on that. And I think I've been working with the clients, our residents that have been impacted by floods, and talk to staff, and going to be taking some action there over the next week. So, and trying to support them anyway. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Makahonic. Director Cass.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. In light of the fact that our meeting's going so quickly, I've added 3 pages to my report. So buckle up. Before I get going, though, I did have the opportunity to report on our ministerial tours of the Hatsuk watershed during RACs. Director Davidson, were you going to be giving a report on that?
I did have some, I was going to speak to that.
Yeah, I'll skip through mine then. Actually, what I will say with that regard is we had the opportunity to have a bunch of ministers touring the Hatsuk watershed, and one of the ministers was the Minister of Forests. And in his remarks, he commented on the BC Wildfire Service and how that's under his. So I took the opportunity to approach the minister with regards to being able to properly manage fire bans in the electoral areas. We'll recall last season when BC Coastal decided to lift the fire bans. Those of us in the electoral areas were kind of wondering what the heck was going on. Of course, the municipalities have the jurisdiction through their fire chiefs to impose bans, but we in the electoral areas don't. So I was encouraged that Minister Ralston was open to looking at that. So that may be one of the items at UBCM that I take forward there. I attended a meeting of the Nakoman Island Project Steering Committee with members of the Nakoman Island Improvement District, the Camel First Nation, engineering staff, and consultants. It does feel like we're moving forward with improvement to the Nakoman Island dikes and all of the pumps that work to keep the agricultural lands on the island drained and clear of seepage. I want to thank FERD staff for their diligence and creativity as we work to find a path forward with work that has been difficult to get started for several years. I think we're almost ready to get on with the work, and I'm hopeful that will hopefully mitigate flooding and seepage on Nakoman Island. And I'm really, really, really hoping that we're going to see something in the July meeting with regards to moving forward with that. Truck shaking his head. Awesome. CPR Police Sergeant Simon Turner took the time to meet with me this past month, and I learned a lot about the authority of the CP Police and how they can assist in policing the traffic along Highway 7. We need all the help that we can get. I appreciate Sergeant Turner's time and want to thank him for meeting with me. This past Sunday, my husband and I went on an adventure to a part of Area G that we had never been before, and we explored parts of Sumas Mountain Regional Park, which we didn't know existed until I started my job as the area director. It was a beautiful day for a hike, which I would say for me was a moderate difficulty level, which became more difficult when we decided to spend 4 hours to complete a 2-hour hike. We only missed 2 turns, which resulted in the additional 2 hours of hiking. One of the signs we missed was missed by a number of hikers that we met up with. And as always, we were thankful for the assistance of Google to get us back on the right path. I may have a suggestion or two about sign placement along the Chadsey Lake Trail, if anyone is interested, and hope that others will have the opportunity to experience the spectacular scenery at the top of Sumas Mountain and Chadsey Lake, which is part of Area G. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Castle. Yeah.
Sorry,
ahead,
I did
Director
forget
Allen.
a couple of things. I just wanted to thank Andrew Schellenberg and the Fire Smart team for coming out and completing the Sunshine Valley program. They came out for two separate full presentation and then a whole day of assistance, and the entire community is very thankful for having that chipping program taking place, and they were very pleased with everything. And then I also got to attend the start of the Hope Pride festivities that have begun taking place all this month, and went out to the family picnic on Sunday and had a great time, and was very pleased to see that Director Castle had also come out to visit an event with his partner, and they had a great time at one of the best concerts that you probably ever see in Hope area. So we look forward to more of those events taking place this coming year. That's it.
Great, thank you, Director Adamo. And I was going to comment, Director Castle, the issue around these fire bans. I'm not sure this comment is pertinent, but I remember years ago, our fire chief was expected to enforce fire bans in our communities, and he decided that no, he did not enjoy showing up at his neighbor's marshmallow roast and telling people that this was not allowed. So we walked away from that rule. Director Davidson, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. So a
Pardon me,
couple things. Go
Director
ahead.
Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. While I agree that enforcement is always an issue, I do really believe that if there is a ban in place, it will prevent some of the people from setting fires. So enforcement is a whole nother issue that I'm hoping to bring to this table through my term, because we definitely need help with enforcement in the regional district. But I do believe that if we have the ability to impose a ban in the area, it will stop some of the people from lighting fires when it clearly is not wise to do so.
Good, thank you for that direction. Back to Director Davidson, please.
Thank you, Chair. So late May, we had the Davis Lake wildfire. Not an immense one by today's standards at any rate, considering everything that's going on. It's about 21 hectares when all was said and done, but it did burn out of control for best part of 3 weeks before it was brought under control. So happily, the wind direction was favorable. However, you know, the smoke and the flames were visible from area F and from city of Mission, and very, very alarming to look at. So it's just a pretty graphic reminder that as we move into fire season, some of the risks coming ahead. And also, to me, when I think of the outdoor recreation management plan that I know is on staff's calendar to bring forward, that before we start looking at advocating or changing or doing anything in the Crown lands, we have to ensure that the safeguards are in place to mitigate these kinds of risks. Thank you to staff for making sure we're getting these BC wildfire updates sent to the electoral area directors right now. One very interesting statistic that I took away was that for every wildfire that's happened in the in the coastal district this season so far, all of them were human caused. And to me, it just speaks to our essential lack of readiness to deal with whatever our new climate change normal is becoming. And as we start looking at outdoor recreation management opportunities, we simply got to keep that in mind. Anyway, enough of that soapbox. For the Hatzic watershed flood visit, ministerial visit, it was great. Lots of positive energy. It was great to have Lacamo and Matsqui nations represented with 3 ministers there. Thanks to Mayor Horn and his role for hosting it at Mission City Hall. No idea how much I'm already repeating what Corey may have already sent you, but Too bad I wasn't there. And to Minister Alexis's office for putting together the logistics. It was very good. My hope going forward is that as we move out of kind of relationship building, we can move into solutioning sooner rather than later. And I know we have a grant to fund some of the consulting time we're going to need, but I think there's a long way to go. The works in process right now are around mitigating the stream impacts of the ARE event. But we're a long ways away from having any kind of proactive flood control, and that's my hope. But we just got to keep pushing. Anyway, thank you. That was it.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson, and we trust you're recuperating very well. Good. Director Dixon has a question.
Just all this talk about fire and dry and all the rest of it. Over the years, we have had conversations at the board table around asking powers that be to close the areas to wreck vehicles, to motorcycles, ATVs, things like that. It's very dry out. I know our fire department is super worried already, and it's, you know, still kind of early June. I'm just wondering if we have, if there's an appetite, or if there's any thought around what FVRD could do to at least give the ministry a heads up that this might be something we're looking for, because I think there may come a time when leaving it open. I mean, and Director Davidson's right; they're all human caused so far, and we don't really know exactly what's causing them. So sparks can cause things too.
Director Wardenberg.
Well, since we're talking about wildfires, Area C happens to have 3 out of control, or 2 out of control wildfires at this point in time. I just want to make a special thank you to staff for keeping me informed of what's going on and the risks involved at any point in time. And yeah, thank you for those updates. And I also want to mention there's a little app that BC Wildlife Service has there, and you can download it, and it gives you a little map, and the map has all the fires in BC, and you just hit it on the little button and it'll tell you all about the fire. So I encourage everybody to download that app. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Wardenberg. Director Adamo.
Well, while we're on this one, sorry, but so when we had the gentleman from forestry here last month talking about how they lack the ability to enforce pretty much any rules with respect to the back country, would it be appropriate for this board for us to try to follow up on that and get some authority ourselves where we can shut down backcountry? And I'll ask specifically because we already know it's only been done once in the 25 years that I've been in the Sunshine Valley, and the fires that were around there were pretty extraordinary at that time for a place with lack of services. So if there's a way that we could send a letter saying that all of the rural areas would be in support of having the ability to do this. We know what our own limitations are with respect to fighting a fire within our own region. And if we don't feel comfortable doing that, why would we be allowing children and adults that are perhaps and quite often impaired ride their motorized vehicles into the backcountry uncontrolled? And we have nothing that we can do about it except watch our places burn down at that stage. And yet we're supposed to be representing the people of our community. So is there something that we could do as a joint letter where everyone would come on board and say, we're going after you now, you have to find some additional funding to the Ministry of Forests or whatever to start to police this better? Is there something along those lines? Probably not wording it very well, but you're understanding my concerns.
Good. Thank you, Director Adamo. Staff.
Through the chair to Director Adamo, I believe we've sent correspondence such as this in the past, and I could certainly dig it out and provide it to the Electoral Area Services Committee for their consideration. In terms of bringing forward some kind of a request or UBCM resolution, we're already too late for that for this year. However, perhaps the Electoral Area Services Committee might like to make a request for a meeting at UBCM and bring this issue forward, because as much as I like to be positive all the time, I don't think that any kind of request such as this would be met for this particular season. So, you know, maybe this would be an issue that this committee wants to carry forward over the next couple of years, and look at some advocacy from a board-wide perspective. I think we've had some response from ministry in the past in terms of what the challenges would be around delegating authority to one specific area of the province. However, I'll look into the files and bring it back if that's the committee's wish.
Good, thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. And so procedurally, would you like a resolution to set up a meeting at UBCM, or
Chair Dickey, I always love a resolution.
seeing as this was Director Adamo's idea, would you like to make a resolution as to moving forward?
So my resolution would, or our resolution would be that we make an attempt to contact and meet at UBCM with the department responsible for Ministry of Forests to discuss these potential hazards and how we would go about dealing with that in the future in our own rural jurisdictions.
Very nicely crafted, thank you. Seconder. Director Johnson seconds. Any discussion?
I see Director Davidson has his hand
Oh,
raised.
thank
Chair Dickey.
you. Director Davidson, go ahead.
Sorry, that's for another matter. Please continue.
Oh, okay. Good. So any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? The motion carries. And I believe Director McAhonick had her light on. Is that right?
I just have concerns. I mean, we have one road in, one road out. I mean, we had a fire at Thurston Meadows and it was, nobody could get out the road. We've had 3 fires this year, so I absolutely get it. But I mean, we have staging areas built specifically for people to come and use their recreational vehicles. A lot of them, like a couple big ones in the Chilliwack River Valley. So I mean, these are been put in place by the different ministries and they're highly utilized. So I just wonder how we're gonna do something like that. And I think that in the past, I mean, I can't remember what year it was, but I used to have a sailboat for many years on Harrison, and I remember they shut the whole back bush down and you couldn't even get off the boat or anything. They just shut everything down. Like you couldn't even go on to shore, you had to stay on the boat. So I think I don't know, like, do you want to just do this? I'm just asking, do you want to just do this during fire season, or is this a bigger issue, or like, I'm not quite sure what we're exactly asking for here.
If you're asking me, absolutely through fire season. We already know that it's starting much earlier than it ever has in the past, and that we are all at risk in losing our entire rural areas. So would it be okay to shut it down for a short period of time during this high risk period? And people will just have to get used to it, like they get used to pretty much anything else when there's a risk factor involved.
Okay, I just wasn't really clear on it.
Yeah, like
Length of
right now,
term or-
fire ban is on from today at noon to October 31st, is my understanding, or October 1st, unless otherwise we're notified. So it would be something not necessarily along those lines, but in this high risk, high heat period, the risks are extraordinary. I saw a child last week light a fire because his little ATV fell over and light a fire in the field, and it just fell over, and his dad picked it up in 35 seconds, and it still started a fire that was all of a sudden 100 feet by 100 feet in no time.
Good, thank you. Very important topic. Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Director Wardenberg's comment about the app from BC Wildfire Service jogged my memory on something, and that's our own alertable app that we promote and use and like to encourage people to use. But unfortunately, it doesn't report on wildfire activity. It seems like a pretty significant gap. Now I realize this is technology and it involves basically a private entity, whatever company does Alertable, having access to provincial data, being able to relay it. There's a technology dance that needs to happen. But I'm wondering, have staff investigated the viability of getting BC Wildfire Service data through the Alertable app? Or did the vendor just reject it? Or did the province not willing to support it? Because if it's on the provincial side that there's a barrier, there's potential opportunity for a UBCM resolution. If it's on the vendor, alertable vendor side that there's a barrier, then we can use that as an argument to potentially find another vendor. I don't know, but I think it's really, really important not to have multiple apps for multiple kinds of hazards. And I'd very much like to see the wildfire service stuff integrated into the alertable app, and wondering if staff have any comment. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson, staff.
Through the chair to Director Davidson, I'll maybe start off and then perhaps the experts can kind of correct me afterwards. The Fraser Valley Regional District is the local authority when it comes to emergencies, and we utilize the Alertable app when life safety becomes a concern. The issue, of course, with the BC Wildfire app is that not all wildfires are a threat to life safety, and I think it would be challenging if we were to report on every single wildfire that came through. We, of course, work very closely with BC Wildfire when our assistance is needed and when an emergency operations center comes into play. And that would be the trigger for our staff to start sending out alerts through Alertable. But now that I've said all of that, I will turn it over to the expert, Graham Daniluz and Tarina College, because perhaps I missed something in that explanation.
Thank you. Through the chair to Director Davidson, the Alertable app is precisely as Jennifer had described it, and we won't likely have success in pushing the provincial government to using the app itself. Each agency having jurisdiction of its disaster type will use its most appropriate method of notification. Alertable is capable of feeding into the national alert ready system. However, at this point in time, the province has not empowered local governments to take that initiative. There has been some advocacy at UBCM over that in the past, and there's some ironing out and program development happening right now with the provincial government and their notification pathways. But Alertable, as a reminder, is a notification system, not a situational intelligence tracking system. So we put what we want into Alertable when we want it to go into Alertable. We have in the past put some notifications that were very relevant, such as up in Boston Bar, North Bend area, when there was extreme smoke activity, and both wildfire and the local fire department were receiving plentiful notifications to report new wildfires or believed wildfires that were really just noise, and we're drawing on first responder services. So we used the system to advocate for a notice that essentially said there's high smoke activity in the area, and we are actively engaged in activity with wildfire. We know it's happening. Please, check the wildfire dashboard. I hope that's helpful, and if you would like to know more, I'm happy to connect with you offline.
So if I may, Chair, I think for me it's a case that people simply want to know what's going on. And I think the distinctions that have been put forward by staff between Alertable and what BC Wildfire Service does are going to be lost on most residents. So if the content that goes into Alertable is 100% controlled by staff, and the app itself has no way to consume another published source of data, assuming the province is willing even to publish that source of data. I'm not suggesting that the province should use Alertable. It's about making that data available for consumption by other technologies, such as Alertable. If that's not feasible going forward, then I think there really is a need, at least, to let people know via Alertable that, hey, you want to know about this wildfire, click this link, because we don't consider it critical, but you can click here and off you go. Because I think in the basic what do you call it, anxiety level, it's much greater anxiety to see a wildfire, to see the red flames burning from your home, as it is to see something like an air advisory that would come through Alertable. So I don't know. I think it's just about centralizing the information somehow and doing what we can to basically alleviate that anxiety without having a patchwork of applications that any given resident may or may not be aware of. So if possible, I'd certainly like to see staff try to relay wildfire information through Alertable. Um, anyway, but yeah, thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson, for providing that direction. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. So living in North Bend and having to use the BC Wildfire app as directed by the RCMP because we are the last residents on Green Ranch Road. And the fire was 8 kilometers from us, and the constable phoned me and suggested or asked me to check BC Wildfire 3 times a day. And because if the fire came over the mountain, that they wouldn't have time to contact everybody to evacuate. So I did as I was told. And because that fire wasn't necessarily top of the list for BC Wildfire, they actually didn't update for several days. So me checking it 3 times a day went nowhere. So my alertable was watching the mountain, and if I saw fire come over the top, I would know to leave. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Johnson. And speaking with electoral area directors of other parts of the province, that has been the experience I've heard of, is that when you see fire coming over the hill, you are on your own. Not in every case. Director Castle.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. After hearing the explanation of how Alertable actually operates by staff, it occurs to me that there's staff time that's involved in pushing these out. So while I find the, Director Davidson's point very valid, that we would love that service to be able to alert people of wildfires, I'm wondering what the implications on staff time might be. Do we have capacity to do that? And I know that Director Davison doesn't like the word capacity. Do we have enough staff to be able to push out wildfire information if it's being done manually?
Through the chair to Director Castle, I think it was the word depth that he was concerned about before, not capacity. But I think your point is well taken. Our emergency management program, you've had a number of presentations over the last couple of months, and it's important to remember what the purpose of that program is, and it's about the management and the planning aspects, and it's not as much about the response. We're doing our best to move towards that community preparedness piece, but I think that if we were going to start putting out these kinds of messages and trying to do more of that, we would have to talk about additional staff capacity in the organization to do that kind of work.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you, Director Castle. I see Director Davidson, so Director Davidson's hand is down. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Chair. I guess my point is I see this as an impossible task for staff when BC Wildfire are not able to update every fire as I was requested to check 3 times a day. That's my point. How can you expect staff to do this when BC Wildfire is not updating because they had higher priorities than the fire that was maybe going to affect 12 people in my area? Thank you.
British Columbia is a big place. Yeah. Thank you, Director Johnson. So moving on, my director's report was that 2 evenings ago, I had the joy of finding myself sporting down Highway 1 to Abbotsford to an event with Minister of Housing Director, Mr. Cullen. And there I was sporting down number 1 highway in a convertible with Director Macahonic. I felt like a teenager again. what little I have left that my hair was blowing. Mr. Cullen is certainly taking a very aggressive stance on the expanding need for housing in especially the Fraser Valley. He talked a lot about perhaps putting 4 homes on a single family lot, talking about if we have an official community plan that is recent, that there may not be a requirement to going through a public hearing, that parking should not be a limiting factor in developing single family or multifamily homes. And it was pointed out that if we don't expand the inventory of housing, that our families are not going to have places to live in our communities. So that's what seems to be the provincial tone right now, and it'll be interesting to see how this moves forward. I believe the legislation is set to go before Victoria in the fall. Is that right, Mr. Dallas? Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, Director Makahonic and I were there. A lot of the mayors and many of the local developers from the Fraser Valley attended. And I believe Minister Cullen is coming in on Friday to Chilliwack. Yeah, good. That is my report. Thank you. Pardon me? Okay.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So moving to item 15, we have public question period for items relevant to the agenda. I see that we do not have any members of the public here in the boardroom, but I will just ask our corporate officer if we have anybody online or we received any written submissions.
Thank you. We do have one member of the public joining us online today, and this would be your opportunity to ask a question relevant to the agenda. I would just hit the raise hand function, and I would just, while we give this member of the public an opportunity to hit the raise hand function, we have not received any written questions at all, and we have nobody here in person. And it would appear that there are no questions, and we can move on.
Good, thank you. Ms. Kinham.
Looking for a motion to adjourn.
Motion, move Director Johnson, second Director Dixon. A discussion, hearing none, all in favor. Motion carries. Thank you, staff. Thank you, directors.
My question was, did they discuss any need,